Hello, fellow devs. SQL Dev DBA here, and welcome to my sessions on data discovery. I am a database professional with about 12 or so years of experience, and one of the most rewarding parts of my job, I think, or one of my favorite parts of my job is to discover brand new data sets. And so this particular session is me going out and discovering a brand new data set, going to the internet and finding a data set, bringing it into SQL Server, which is my favorite database platform. We're going to be creating SQL Server views to serve to Power BI and then ultimately a Power BI report. So I'm very excited to show you, and let's get right to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and head over to my computer. Now here I have kaggle.com pulled up, and I'm just going to search around for data sets. I've actually been recently looking at this Formula 1 data set, which I found rather interesting. And so I think that's a good place to start. I'm a big fan of Formula 1, and so I'd like to check it out and see what sort of data we can get out of it, maybe build a small report. Let's give it a shot. So here on Kaggle's website, you're able to see descriptions of the data set that you have. I particularly look for CSVs whenever I can, either a CSV, maybe a JSON file or XML file, but for me the easiest ones to work with are CSV files. So we're going to go ahead and download this data set. As you can see, it comes with quite a few tables or quite a few files, so we're going to go ahead and download all of them. So all I have to do is click download here. I'm going to wait a second for the download to finish, and then we're going to view the file. So it's in my downloads area. I'm going to go ahead and take it and move it over to a datasets folder that I've created. I'll create a new folder here just for Formula 1. And then I'll go ahead and move this zip file over. I'm going to extract it right here. So I use 7-zip is my zip manager of choice. So I'm just going to extract right here. So once those are all done and extracted, now you're left with the task of loading them into SQL Server. Now you could just use SQL Server's native import wizard, but the reality is there are much better tools out there to save you time to do this. And so what I prefer to do is use DBATools. Now DBATools is a free open source platform that works with PowerShell and SQL Server. And so DBATools' staff, they've managed to write out these great commands that help you as a DBA or as even a developer. They help you save tons of time turning full scripts into just one line of code in PowerShell. And so that's what we're going to use today. Now, since we have those files already downloaded, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and build a simple DBATools script to get them all in there. Now, if you are familiar with PowerShells, then you'll know the get item call, which is get dash item. You put a path in here. In this case, we're going to use the path from this folder. So I'll go ahead and copy that, paste it, and you can see here that when I run this, it gives me nothing. I actually used the wrong one. It's called get child item, if I am not mistaken. So here it is, get child item. Now, I want to import all of these. So technically I could write a script that says, hey, for each one of these child items, let's go ahead and import or run this other script. But the reality is DBATools has already taken care of that. They've already thought of that. And so what I'm going to do instead is head over to DBATools' website. They have a script called import. I'm going to just hit Control F and search for it. Import DBA CSV. Here it is. Import DBA CSV. And basically this takes any CSV and imports it straight into SQL Server with one line of code. and it'll do multiple at the same time if you just give it a path. Now I need to find which one that is. Let's see, get child item is the script I was looking for earlier. That's the one I was going to use. I think it might be this one. Get child item, path, import into SQL Server right here. Yes, this guy right here. Okay, so this will get every single CSV in a file path into two SQL servers. It looks like into a TempDB database. That's fine. We're going to choose our own database. Okay, so let's borrow this one. Thanks to the folks at DBATools, you do amazing work and you save me time, which is fantastic. All right, so we're going to hop over right back into PowerShell ISE, and we're just going to paste this and see where we land. Okay, so the path, I can replace that with the path that we've been working in. So I'll do that right now. I'm going to go ahead and take the path that we built. I'll add a slash at the end because I think it might need a slash, and the fact that all these files showed up tell me that's probably true. I'm going to go ahead and change the SQL instance to, instead of the SQL instance there, I'm going to have it be my own SQL server. So I'll remove this comma. And then the database we want, we're going to call it Formula 1. Now this database doesn't exist, so I have to hop over to my SQL server and create it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop over here and I'm going to create a brand new database. I'm running SQL Server 2019, but that's really not important. You can run this on probably 2016 plus, maybe even 2012 plus. So I'm going to create this database and I'm going to call it Formula 1. I'm going to set the database owner to SA because I'm a good noodle. And I'm going to set the recovery model to simple because I don't want a huge transaction log. I'm not going to back this thing up. There's no reason for me to have it as a full recovery model, so I'll just keep it as simple. All right, and that's really the only settings I'm gonna add here. I'm not gonna turn anything fancy on like RCSI, although I love RCSI. I'm not really gonna turn that on. I'm just gonna name it Formula 1, have it be owned by SA, and then hit OK, and the database will show up probably here at the bottom. There it is right here. So now the only thing I need to steal is this server name because I can't memorize all these characters. So I'm going to steal that server name and head over back to PowerShell. Now, the SQL instance I want to import this into is right here, the server name we just copied. So in review, we have get child item, which is going to go ahead and get a list of all those items, just like you see down there. I have the path that I want, which is the path that all my files are in. And the command is import DBA-CSV. I have the instance that I want to import it to, the new database we just created, and auto create table, which is a feature that says if the table doesn't exist, go ahead and create it and load the files in there. If the tables do exist, then it'll simply just append all the records to it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and run this, and it should take a little bit, but DBATools is extremely fast. That's one of the other amazing things about it, is not only does it save you a ton of time because you don't have to import these files by yourself, and really who has time for things like that, but it's also really, really quick. You can see the progress going as it sits, and you can see all the progress. There we go. Look at all the files that are going in, and we're done. We have tons of files in here now. They're all in brand new tables. Let's go check them out in SQL Server. So we open this up and we can see there's quite a few tables now. I'm particularly interested. Oh, Constructors Championship looks pretty cool. Drivers Championship, I really like that. That's pretty cool. Fastest laps, look at that. Okay, I think what I'm gonna go for is race results. That's probably one of the easiest data sets, I'm assuming. Let's see what sort of columns we have. Okay, driver, venue, okay, at certain tracks, the year, position. Okay, I think I like this one. One thing to know about DBATools, the reason it's so quick and the reason it's so universal and it'll just let you import any file, is that if you notice, all my columns are actually in varchar max. Now that's just so like it's a universal catch-all. These are more like staging tables. So if you want to import into a production level table where it has defined data types, you can still do that. You just use a special command and you can tell it to model the table after a table that you've already created. So that is a really cool feature, and I highly recommend you go to DBATools/commands and do a little bit of legwork there. But for the sake of this exercise, I'm just going to go ahead and push it through here. I'll do all my casting and all my data type conversions in views that I prepare for Power BI. So let's get to it. I'm going to go ahead and just select top 1000 from this table, and we'll see what we got. I'm going to hide the resource view because we don't really need that. Okay, so we have some data here. This one looks to be just a regular ID. Here's the year, the position. Okay, so these are the driver's positions, the driver number. We have the venue. We have the name of the driver, the name tag. Okay, so I think, oh, and then we have the time too. That's pretty cool. Total time. It looks like a total time. And then how many points they scored. Okay, so I think what I'm going to start doing is just renaming columns and also getting the data types correct here. So I am really not super interested in this first column, but just for the sake of having a unique identifier for Power BI, I'm going to go ahead and add it. Actually, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this and build a clustered column store index for me. Clustered column store index for me are cheat sheets that allow me to get really good results and really good optimization right off the bat from a table. Eric Darling has a fantastic article on clustered column store. Let's pull that up. If I knew how to spell column store, then I'd definitely find it. Actually has like 1 million articles on column store. I highly recommend you check it out at ericdarlingdata.com/category/column store. Pretty much all the information you need to know, including like a beginner's guide on how to get started with column store, is there. So yeah, I definitely recommend you check that out. However, I'm just going to go ahead and create it. I do it so much all the time, even for temp tables, that I actually have the command memorized. So I'm just going to say create clustered column store index, and I'm going to be very lazy and name this right after the table. And I'm going to name it _CCS so I know it's a clustered column store on the table itself. No, dbo.that. Okay. And then as soon as that's done, what I'm gonna do is, I missed something there. Oh yeah, this table is, there we go. Had a dash there. Okay, so as soon as I'm done with that, I'm gonna go ahead and just update statistics. And that's done too. And now my query hopefully is tons faster. And let's find out. Let's run a quick execution plan and see if we got a clustered column store index scan. We sure did. Column store index, the best type of index, if you ask me, just because I'm very lazy and I don't like for queries to take too long. So what we're going to do is we're going to rename these columns because we're about to prepare it for a view so that Power BI can consume it. So I'm going to rename this column, or just give it an alias actually. I'm not going to go into the table and rename it because, again, I'm very lazy. And so I'll name this one unique ID. Now, Power BI loves unique IDs because it can use them to count distinct very easily. So that's why we want to feed one into Power BI. This is just year. That's fine. But we want to cast this one as an integer, right? So we're cast as int because it's a year. So we can afford integers here. Technically speaking, you could probably do something like small int, not tiny int, because that one only goes to 999. As year. Okay, position. We're going to call this one driver position, right? As driver position. we don't like decimal places or decimal points in our column names. So we're going to go ahead and just name this one driver number. And since it's driver number, that means I should be able to cast this one as an int as well. Now I want to cast it as an integer because Power BI will recognize it as an integer. And that way, we won't have to worry about data type conversions inside Power BI itself. I'm going to do the same thing actually with position now that I think about it, because position should be a number. So let's give that a shot here. All right, and the venue, that one's okay. I can do a venue in text. Name, yep, we're also gonna need names there. Why don't I just select it so I can see the data? Oh, look at that. NC didn't let us convert, so that's probably position, I assume. Another way to fix this is you can just do a try cast. Now the difference between a cast and a try cast is that a try cast will simply return null if it wasn't able to find a position. So here we are, definitely not able to cast that as an int. So I'm going to turn off the casting altogether for position. I was very wrong to assume that it would just be an integer. So I'm gonna, oh, here they are. Yep, lots of NCs. So the venue, we know that's text, right? Here's USA West, the driver name. I'm going to rename this one to driver name for sure, as driver name. And then the venue, why don't we call that track name just to keep everything kind of concise. Track. See, part of my job during my years is to prepare data sets for business intelligence analysts, so people who are writing reports. And what I want to make sure is that they have all the context that they need, and they don't have to guess about whether a name is a driver name or it's a track name or it's a team name, right? So here's another one where it's a team. They could probably get away with this, but I'd rather give them just a perfectly succinct name, or what I would think is perfectly succinct. So here I'm gonna say driver team, because this is about the drivers, right, and their race results. So name tag, I'm also gonna call it just as driver name tag, because all of these attributes are really about the driver. So lapse, I think I can probably leave that. However, I'm curious as to whether or not I can have this be an integer, right? So I should be able to cast this as an integer. Let's find out. Cast lapse as int as lapse. Nope, I totally made a mistake there. All right. And then the time, I'm gonna say as total time, because the context here could be like, oh, it's lap time, but it's actually the total time of the race, including, unfortunately for whoever, let's see, whoever this, a Ferrari. Unfortunately for Ferrari, it was a DNF, meaning they didn't finish the race. So ouch for them in 1981. Quite a few times, apparently, throughout the whole season. Something's wrong with that data. I don't know about that. Okay, well, we'll find out, I guess. And then we're gonna say points. Points is okay here. I think I can leave this as points. So let's see what our new view looks like. Okay, we have all the new column names, so that's pretty great. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go ahead and create this as a view. So I'm gonna hit create view. And then, you know what I actually want to do is create a new schema so I can organize all my reports. See, here I have all my tables, but I want to be able to organize my reporting areas as well, or my reporting objects. And even though they're going to be probably in the views, just in case I add views for other stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and create a schema. Create schema RPT. And now some folks, they actually use this for permissions management, and that's fine. You can do so as well. I use it more for organizational purposes. Most of the users in my databases are just DB owners or full data readers anyway, and so they usually have access to all the schemas. But if that floats your boat, then why not? All right, so we've created our RPT schema. Now we're going to create a view, and we're going to name this view VW race results. I'm not going to put the years. I think it's kind of silly, just in case I end up adding more data from like 2022. I don't want this view to be like 1950 to 2020 only. So I'd rather just give it a bit of a, let's say, ambiguous or agnostic name, just so that I can continue to expand it and I don't have to change the name of the view. Okay, and then I just like to leave a little bit of comments like created by and a created date. Today's the 18th of February, so we're gonna do that. All right, and then created for is another one I like to do. Let's do data discoveries. Episode 1, Formula 1. And then a quick description. A quick description that says returns F1 data for races from 1950 to 2020. Now here I can put it because this is just comments, and comments don't matter. Nobody reads the comments. You never do, right? You never read the comments, even though I put all of my code. I take the time out to write all the comments I can to tell you what I'm doing, but you never read my comments. And then you ask me questions about my views or my stored procedures, and I say go to the comments, and you still don't go to the comments. So this one's misaligned. I'm gonna make sure that it's not. All right, so we are done creating our view. Now let's go check out our view and make sure it still works and that we can consume it in Power BI. All right, so here's our view. I'm gonna select top 1000 from it. Fantastic. All right, and then we got these red squiggly lines. That's just IntelliSense hasn't been refreshed. So I'm going to do a Control-Shift-R and wait a couple seconds, and we should have, there we go, it went away. That's fantastic. All right, so what we've done is, so far, we have created a view from a data set that we just went out on the internet and got. We imported it with DBATools. And we're about to, still have not done that third step here, create a Power BI report. So let's go ahead and jump into Power BI, and we should be able to create our report. Let's give it a shot. All right, so I just got into Power BI here. I have my main screen. I'm going to go ahead and just do a blank slate report, and we're just gonna go on the fly here. So let's try it out. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get some data. Now I like to get my data from SQL Server. I might have it in the recent sources. However, let's just do a completely blank slate import. So here I'm gonna say get data and a SQL Server. I'm going to go back to my SQL Server because, again, I can't remember what it's called. So I'm just going to steal the name right here. I should probably write that down somewhere so I don't have to keep jumping back. But for this purpose, it's fine. The database is going to be Formula 1. And so here we have a couple options, right? You can either go import. Import just means that the data is going to be stored in the cloud. Your reports are generally a lot faster, and they don't need your SQL Server to be up and running to return data. And with direct query, it's more live data. So the queries run directly on the server, and you're not going to have to wait for the next refresh in Power BI to be able to see the latest data. For this, nothing's going to change from 2020. Ferrari's not going to win the 1950 championship. I'm not really sure that they did, but we might be able to find out with this data set. So since there's not really a lot of updates that are going to happen throughout the day, I feel comfortable with just importing. Power BI Pro does have a 1 gigabyte limit, so just make sure your data set's not bigger than 1 gigabyte and you should be good to go. All right. No advanced options are needed. This is where you would put it like a direct select statement if you want, or a stored procedure, something like that. I don't need that. I'm just going to pick from a view. So we're going to click OK and wait for the data set to come in. I'm going to use my current credentials, although what I normally would do is create a user for reporting. So I would normally create a user for reporting and call that, let's say, a Power BI user. Why? Because generally speaking, Power BI is a bit rambunctious. And so what I like to do is create a Power BI user that only allows Power BI to access our server through that user. Why? Well, if Power BI seems to get out of hand at some point, all we have to do is turn it off at the user level. I don't know. Is that too much work? Well, it kind of is. It's a lot of work managing it. However, more than once, I've had to diagnose a slow SQL server, and the result ended up being a bunch of queries that all had Power BI user as the culprit. Now, all I had to do to resolve this at the time, other than optimization, but to stop the bleeding, I just went in and locked Power BI user and I turned off all of its connections. I killed all of them. If these queries are running as me, then how am I going to separate which queries to kill easily without actually going through and seeing whether or not it's the bash engine from Power BI or SQL Server analysis services? Just having Power BI compartmentalized into its own user is really beneficial for more reasons than one, but that's the primary reason I choose to. For this particular demo, I'm not going to go through the action of creating Power BI user, but it is something I generally do. All right, let's hop back over to my Power BI. All right, here we go. So I'm going to use my current credentials and I'm going to connect. Now, what it's going to do, it's going to tell me about encryption support, and I'm going to click OK because I never read these sort of things. Like, you don't read my comments. That's exactly how I interpret all these warnings from Power BI or from anything really. And we're just going to search for Formula 1. I know it's around here somewhere. Oh, what is it? We created race results. Here's my view. It's called RPT VW race results. I can check it, or I can just click on it and we see our data. Here it is. Oh, you can choose to transform the data, and that's cool. Part of the Power BI experience is to be able to transform the data and add and remove columns. I prefer to do most of my manipulation within SQL Server itself. So all my concatenation, all my casting, most of my filtering, I prefer to do on the SQL Server side. But there are certain occasions in which this would be a lot better. If you're more comfortable in Power BI, then by all means, go ahead and do it there. Just know that if you make manipulations of your data within Power BI, you're not going to be able to transfer something like that to like SSRS. However, if I make all my changes in SQL Server, then all of those columns I create and all of the manipulation, they're actually going to show in both SSRS and SQL Server, and Power BI. And really any other reporting platform, including just a straight query. So that is something that you should really think about. All right, so we're going to go ahead and load the data. And now we have all of our data. Oh, I just discarded the changes. No, I didn't. Look, saved by the pop-up. That's fantastic. All right, let's wait for this guy to go ahead and load, and I think it should be fairly quick. All right, so the first thing I like to do when I have a new data set in Power BI is just bring it in as a grid. Why? Because it lets me see whether or not Power BI is interpreting the data set the way I really want to. So more often than not, if I just start slamming visuals in, what's going to happen is I'm going to discover that there's an issue, or that something needs concatenation or replacement or building a friendly or even data conversion. And I prefer to just find all of that out from the very beginning. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a simple table, and I'll do that by clicking just the table icon. Once I have that, I'm just going to go ahead and make it quite large to fit across the screen. And then I'm just going to start slamming stuff in. I try to do it in the same order that I created the view. So if I remember correctly, it was something like unique ID, and then what was it, year, and then things about the track. So the track, the venue. No, the venue is the track name. Let's call it driver team, driver number, driver name tag. And then, so these things are all about the drivers themselves, right? Except for the track or the driver. Now, one thing that's really interesting is this sum of year. That means Power BI is already summarizing. I don't want that. I want the straight data. So I'm going to right click the year and click don't summarize. Let's check to make sure unique ID isn't doing that as well. No, it's not. Okay, so we're okay here. Sum of driver number, I don't want sums. Just give me the straight data. There we go. Sometimes it'll do like an automatic aggregates, like sums, counts, things like first, last, and I don't really want that. All right. So driver position. Oh, okay. So that's my next one. We're just going to go ahead and check that. Driver position. And then here we have the laps, the points, and the total time. All right, fantastic. Do we get any sums? Yeah, look at that. We got an aggregate right there. Let's kill that. Okay, so I'll usually just leave this as like a grid page. So let me make the grid a little bit smaller. One thing I'm going to add is a filter for the year. So I'll go ahead and drag that filter in here, or just drag the column into the white space, and then make it a slicer. And since it's a year, it's an integer, so I can just drag it over here, and I can make it a between. So that's what I've done, is I've gone ahead and made it a between. Let's do one more thing. Let's make another slicer for teams, just in case I want a really quick slicer for teams. We'll have that as well. So I'm making a slicer for teams. This takes up too much room, and it's really, frankly, just kind of annoying. So what I'm actually going to do is make this a drop down instead. So here we go. We have a drop down instead. I hate this multi-select with control thing. Our users are generally not familiar with the control to multi-select, so I like to just have it without. And I also want to give them the ability to do a select all. So I'm going to turn on select all, but I'm going to turn off multi-select with control. So now I should have a visual, or sorry, a slicer that allows you to select. So if I only want to select Ferrari, oh, but I have to scroll, hold on. What I want to do is click on the ellipse here and turn on search. That way I can search. So if I want Ferrari, for example, or I'm actually wearing a Pierre Gasly shirt, so I should say Renault now, even though he's still, oh no, he's actually with Renault already. He's no longer with AlphaTauri. So yeah, if I want Renault, here it is. And we can see that this works. So fantastic. So there's my slicer for the years, I assume. Do we have 2007 data? We sure do. All right. So, you know what? We'll add one more slicer. And to do that, I'm just going to copy paste this driver team slicer because I'm a bit lazy. And we'll switch that to driver, no, not driver position, driver name. Driver name. All right. And technically speaking, we could actually put the driver name inside the driver team. The problem is some drivers swap around quite a bit, right? So if we have someone like, let's see if we can find Alonso. He's switched from team to team. And so you can see some entries here for Minardi, some entries here for Renault, McLaren, Ferrari, and McLaren, and I guess no. Oh, that's a bit strange. So nothing after his retirement. That's quite interesting. Okay, no problem. Did he come back in 2020? I don't even remember. Regardless, okay, looks like our filters work. Now let's start making some visuals about these. So here I'm just going to rename this page to Data Grid, just so I can always come back to it. Now, I don't feel like recreating these slicers, and I'm going to go ahead and need them. So I'm just going to duplicate this page because I don't really have a lot of time. So I'm going to create a summary page. And what that's going to have is nothing from the grid, but it's going to keep all these filters. So the first thing I like to do is I want to make sure I can play a little bit of Tetris. So I'll give these filters a quick background. And to do that, I'm going to click Effects in the Format pane. And I'm going to go to gray here and give it like an 85% transparency. Maybe more. Or less, I guess you could say. 75. Is that 75? I'm not very good with numbers, apparently. Maybe it's my monitor. There we go. Now I can do like an 85 and it should be okay. All right, good. And then I like the formatting here, so I'm just going to copy and paste that using the format painter. And let's line these up a little bit better. We're actually going to put them down here. Why? Because I want to be able to put like some sort of title here, right? So let's see. All right, so we're gonna do some summary cards first, right? So these summary cards, they're gonna just say quick facts. Usually I'll put these somewhere around the top left. That way my users can just go straight over to the top left. And I want to make sure I give it this background. Did it format? Oh, of course, I'm gonna have to do it by myself. So I guess I have to add data first. So how many drivers? How many unique drivers? Now, the only way I think I'll be able to get a unique driver is definitely not by driver number, because driver numbers can be reused. What if we do, just by driver name? So I'm going to drag this guy in. And instead of first, the summary I want is count distinct. How many distinct drivers do we have? 776 unique drivers. So we're going to call that unique drivers. That's quite a lot. Did not expect that. Okay, so we have 776 unique drivers. I'm going to make this font a little bit smaller. It's not going to give me any room to do anything if I don't do that. So let's make it something like 30. Okay. Yeah, there we go. And then we're going to put just a bunch of metrics here. How many drivers? How many teams? That's probably something that everyone's interested as well. So, unique teams. 319 teams in this data set. That's pretty cool. All right, how many tracks? And I'm starting to realize that this isn't really track name, right? This is just venue or country. But fans are pretty well adjusted to calling the track after the country or wherever the venue is. So 43 total tracks. Let's see. Positions, teams, tracks, drivers. Definitely not total time or a summary. We could do like a min and max. Oh, years. I like that. So how many years are showing? All right, so let's do years. So there we go. Okay, so, wow, so over 71 years. That means I'm very old, and so is Formula One, isn't it? All right, this is very interesting stuff. Okay, so first thing, we're talking about years. Why don't we do drivers per year or races per year maybe? Drivers per year seems to be a good thing to do. So we have this year. When you do things over time, you generally want to do something like a line graph, but don't even have to decide. What I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to the Power BI visual vocabulary, and I always just Google it, even though I probably memorized the website by now. It's called FT Visual Vocabulary Power BI. There it is. So this is a great tool from Financial Times, where in Power BI, it lets you see suggestions on how to visualize data. And what we're going to look for is change over time. So when we click change over time, it gives us lots of options for how we could display the time or data over time. I'm going to go with a simple line graph, but this is a great tool for anyone who has just like a mental block or a writer's block of how do I display this data. Financial Times Visual Vocabulary is a fantastic resource for that. So I'm going to go ahead and add a line graph. And the x-axis for me is going to be the year. And then I think I said something like teams over time or maybe drivers over time. So I'm going to say unique drivers over time for the y-axis. And here we go. Count distinct of drivers over time. That's really weird. There were so many drivers in 1950. Why? So this is the great part about being an analyst or a business intelligence analyst or a data analyst, is that you can see immediate like oddities here. Like there were 80 drivers in 1950. That's just bananas. And I'm just not familiar, I guess, with historical Formula One data, but that's quite a lot. So I'm kind of surprised about that. Okay, so another thing is, what if we want to show both drivers and teams on the same graph so we can save a little bit of real estate? Well, what we're going to do is we're just going to say, let's add teams here to the secondary axis. And we can actually see when we switch this to count distinct. Remember, kids, count distinct. That's your friend. Okay, so this seems to fall in line a little bit more with what we were looking at before. I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit bigger, and I'm going to take it away from the edge because all of this stuff should technically be away from the edge. I'm going to do my best to line this up. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to give it the same formatting here. Why do I add this gray background? Well, for me, it's a little bit easier to gauge spacing between visuals if I just have this available to me. So that's why I generally like to have this gray background. I can play a little bit of Tetris as I'm adding these visuals to the report. Okay, so drivers and driver teams. So drivers, I'm just going to rename this to drivers and teams by year. Okay, fantastic. So we have a visual here. And then let's see, what else can we display here on the right? What about a pie graph or a pie chart? Sorry. What about races per team? Is there a race per team? Or venues? Oh, venues. How many races per venue? So for that, I'll probably end up doing something like a donut chart, just because it'll give me the ability to see all the splits and see the part to wholes. So I'm gonna just add the track name to the legend, and then I'm gonna say, ooh, distinct years per venue? No, because you can have more than one race. Oh man, I don't know. I don't think there's a race ID here, so I can't really do that. How about drivers per track? Let's try drivers per track just to get something out the door here. So let's do driver names. Then let's count distinct. So let's see how many different drivers have raced at certain tracks. Okay, that's not bad. Let's try that. So we can see here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little bit of real estate here. Actually, no, I'm going to rename this because I'm very I want to make sure I have the correct name. So I have driver name. I just double click on that to change the name. Drivers. No. Yeah. Drivers. Why did it make it so huge? Oh, you know what? It's because I used the wrong one. Oh, that's really annoying. I don't want the font size to be so enormous. I'm going to click undo until that's done. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's try formatting it and painting it here. Oh God, why is it doing that? That's so silly, Power BI. Come on, I don't want anything to be formatted that huge. Okay, so I'll just do it myself, I guess, with the background. Maybe I can format it from here. Yeah, look at that. Okay, I'm all about saving time. Okay, so I'm going to take this visualization and I'm going to rename this to just track name. Oh, just track. Track is fine. Track and drivers, or unique drivers. There we go. Okay, and we want to make sure we start counting distinct. That's great. We sure are. Now I'm going to align that and play a little bit more Tetris here, as you can see. All right, and now I think I just need to add one more card here. So let's add that one card and play a little bit of Tetris. This card's gonna have to be a bit bigger than the rest. Let me just bring it in halfway here and then bring this one out a little bit. And then what do we want to represent here? Count of years. No, we already have years. What else can we do? There's teams already. Oh, years. And this is unique. Okay, cool. What about like total laps? I mean, it seems kind of weird, I guess. But yeah, total laps. So what about the total laps raced for the entire 50 years? The sum of laps. No, but see, this is laps per driver. And so that probably wouldn't work. So let's chat really quick about this observation. So one of the things that you end up doing while you're discovering your data is just battling with yourself of whether or not what you're about to represent is legitimate or not. And you want to really watch out and make sure you take a moment to just get familiar with your data prior to just slamming a report together like I'm doing right now. You have to have a little bit of history about the data as well, right? You have to know at least a little bit about how whatever you're reporting on works. For example, we can see here in SQL Server when we look at the report that for the same exact track in 1981, if we just filter on it, so let's say where year equals 1981 and track name equals USA West, which, if I'm completely honest, I have no idea where that is. So we can see that the total number of laps, that's really not relevant, right? I mean, but even if it's not relevant, let's try to see what we can do with this. So let's go ahead back to our screen here. So what we're seeing is Brazil itself had, I want to say, a maximum number of 62 laps for the whole race. And yeah, it had a maximum number of 62 laps. But what if I say, okay, only show the maximum number of laps for the top position? Then that would mean for each time all the drivers got together in the same place on the same year, only one of them can have all of the laps showing. So let's do that. What we'll do is we'll do a subquery because it's easiest to put this into a subquery, right? So we'll say select max, or not even, I don't think we even need an aggregate here. We can just have it say select laps from this same exact table, and we've aliased this bottom one RR, so we'll name this one RR2, let's do some proper formatting here so that there we go. So we'll do that from RR2, where RR2 dot location or track name. What was this called? Venue? Yeah, venue equals RR dot venue. And RR2 dot year, which is another way to properly identify a venue and year. Or sorry, yeah, a venue and year. RR equals RR dot year. Fantastic. Okay, I don't like it lighting up purple, so we'll go ahead and do that to clean it up a bit. Okay, so I want get me the laps for each year and each venue, but only for driver position number 1. Driver position. It has to be RR2. RR2 dot driver. Position. Just position. Drive dot position equals 1. Meaning, I only want this value if the driver position was 1. Meaning, I will only get it once per race, and that might give me a better way of getting the number of laps per race. So we'll call this laps, total race laps. Now technically you can start deriving other things from this column. Let's make sure it works first before I start talking. Nope, definitely not. Oh, okay. So conversion failed when converting this number NC into an integer. That's absolutely fine. All we have to do is replace position NC with 0. Replace this position field. Whenever you see NC, then just put 0. I might need to put like the text equals 0, but yes. Okay, so this is very interesting. Apparently, for the same venue in the same year, there are more than one value. So we'll just say max. This is when we force an aggregate. This already tells me that the data is not fantastic, but this is a webcast, really. I'm just messing around with this data, so not a huge deal for me. Oh, looks like we have more values to replace. Okay, so I could add another replace, but instead what I'd rather do is just do a try cast. However, let's take the second here to explore all the unique values that are in the position field for this data set. So select distinct from this table, and I'm going to select the distinct RR position, or just select the distinct position. What sort of things am I dealing with here? Is it just NC and EX? There's DQ, there's NC, there's just there's probably only 3 values. Let's see how many of the values are non-text. So to do that, I'm going to say try cast position as int. And again, as I mentioned before, when you try cast something, all it'll do is say, okay, if I can't cast this as an integer, for example, I'm just going to return null. So as position friendly, we'll call it position friendly here. So you can see that whenever it wasn't able to cast this an int, it just returns null, right? Okay, fantastic. So I think that's what we're going to do. Technically speaking, I could surround this in another replace and then another replace, but then I'll just have to keep adding replaces. And what if we get a brand new text value for position? Then I'll have to code that too. It's really not worth the trouble. So what I'm going to do instead is say I'm going to try cast this position as int, and then I can get a little bit fancier, and I can say, instead of just having this position friendly be returning null, I'll force it to return 0 by wrapping that in a coalesce. So if I wrap this in a coalesce and say 0 as my default value, then now anytime we get a text, we'll actually still get a number, we'll just get 0. So that's not too bad. Why don't we just try that instead? So I'll go ahead and steal that code from myself over here because I don't feel like typing it out again. And you probably don't want to hear the sounds of my keyboard for much longer than you absolutely need to. All right, so look, now for each race, we have a whole bunch of zeros, and then someone must get a 1 somewhere. Oh no, this is points. I'm looking at the incorrect column for sure. Okay, something didn't. Oh, okay. So I wanted the total laps for the leader, but I only want them to show on the leader's record. So I'm gonna say and rr2 dot position equals rr1 dot position, or just rr position. Let's see if that works. I forgot to give this one an alias here. It's not very happy. Oh, RRR just is not a thing. Okay, so total race lap should be basically 0 for everyone except for some drivers, right? Nope, it just like didn't want to give us anything. I'm here. RR2, RR position. This sounds like it's way too much trouble. Okay, let's try it again because that's something very important. There's gonna be a time where you're gonna find, oh my god, I just might not be able to set this value or get this value for you. Right now I'm just working way too hard to try to find a column that I'm not even sure I really want. I was just trying to fill a void. And for me, I have to make the conscious decision of whether or not I want to sit here and chase this. I'll usually set like a timer for myself and say, if I can't get this in 15 minutes, let's roll on to something else. Because the reality is, the folks who are requesting these reports, they want them delivered usually as soon as possible, right? So we want to make sure that we spend our time wisely. And right now, this particular column is not a good use of our time. But let's go back to the report instead, and let's see what we can come up with. So we'll take that L and just focus on the report itself. So we're going to keep the points as the last column here, and let's go back to Power BI and see what else we can do. What about total points? Why didn't I think of that, right? If we go back here to the data set, you'll see that folks got 0 points or they got 1. So how about the total number of points handed out for Formula 1 races? That's not bad at all. So here, and again, we're like at this point, we're just trying to fill space, right? So if we do, oh, look at that. Whenever you see something where you're like, okay, I know I want a sum or a min or max, but all I'm seeing is like first and last. That doesn't make a lot of sense, right? When you look at something like years, same thing. When you look at something like years, it gives you min, max, average. These are numbers. These are not. Why is that? Well, it's very likely that if you click on here on the actual data set, you'll see it as a text. What that means is that your data is coming in as text, so you might want to massage it a bit to make sure it's coming in as a true integer field, which I did not do here, right? So anything that I want to be a number, I should explicitly say it on the SQL Server side, so that Power BI can just automatically bring it in. So I'm just going to cast this as int and then as points. And let's make sure we're aligned. Let's make sure it returns. Nope, it did not like that. What is missing? Oh, right here. All right, we are good. Nope, we are not good. 0.1. Oh my god, someone got 0.1 points. Yes. Okay, that makes sense. So instead of an integer, we're just going to cast this as a decimal. And then I like 18 too. That means 18 total numbers and 2 after the decimal. It looks like that one right here is 1 number after the decimal, so we're safe with 2 here. There we go. Okay, now it gives it back to us, and that's okay that it has 0.00. I really don't mind. All right, so we are altering this view, and there we go. Now, all we have to do is refresh here on the Power BI side, and sometimes it'll actually take it and convert the value on its own based on what it saw. And here we go. We see that this is now a decimal, and when we click on it, or right click, now we can see that it's treating it as a true numeric value, and it lets us do the sums, averages, minimums, etc. So we're gonna go ahead and say, what was it that we wanted? The total number of points handed out. So we're gonna say the sum. Now, I don't really want it to show these decimals. I'd rather have it round because by and large, whole points are given in Formula 1. So we're going to go ahead and take this points, and we're going to click on, I believe it's data format. Sorry, it's it's definitely not format. Data drill, table tools, column tools. There's what we want. And what we're going to do is we're going to have it be okay to be a decimal number, but this decimal places, instead of auto, we're just going to change that to 0. And now it'll round everything. Now, if you don't want this card, I'm going to switch this to be called total points. If you don't want this card to have that, what you can do is you can say the call out value, you don't want the display units to be auto, you want it to just be none. And here it'll actually give you the total number of points that have been handed out. Now this is pretty cool because now you can see, let's say if we want to see how many points were handed in 2020, 1,700 points? I guess so. Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, yeah, okay, great. Sorry, I was confused for a second, but that it is very true. 1,700 points. All right, cool. So let's see. Let's add a little bit of a fancy title here on the page to make sure that we have. Let's see, F1 stats. We'll call this report F1 stats. F1 stats, and then we're gonna make this quite a bit bigger, make it bold, and okay, there we go. And we'll call this, let's change the font type, make this same size but not bold. What is this? Summary. Yearly summary. I guess I have to make this a little bit smaller here. So instead of 36, I'll do 32. Oh, still got to be smaller. 28. All right, there we go. F1 stats yearly summary. Now I want maybe like an F1 logo. So we'll do that as well. And we're just going to go look for a Formula 1 logo. Oh, that's a... Ooh, but we want a PNG, so it'll be transparent, right? PNG. Hey. All right. So we're going to save this image. We'll save it right to downloads. Yeah, let's save it as Formula 1 logo. We'll go back to the Power BI report. That's not the Power BI report. There we go. And we will just go ahead and insert an image. We'll go to our downloads. There's the F1 logo. All right, look at that. Now we make it quite a bit smaller. All right, and then it can be in the background. Now, the easiest way to control something like that is to go to View, and we're going to select the selection pane, which is right here. And we're just going to make sure that this image, which is, we're going to double click and rename F1 logo. We're just going to make sure that that's all the way on the bottom. This is basically just a layering system as well. So I'm going to make sure it's all the way at the bottom, or actually slightly above this one is what it needs to be. Okay, there we go. All right, so now we're able to add some filters here on the right and make this about the same size. Let's see, what other fields can we add here? Positions. How about, like, yeah, I think we're going to do driver position. Why? Because that means that we'd be able to, since it's going to be a numeric filter, I'm going to go ahead and have it be the same, on the same side as that one, as the year, since it's numeric as well. Okay, so driver position, why would that be cool? Well, that will be cool because of the fact that we can say, hey, I just want to see the first place positions throughout the years, like who scored first. That'd be pretty cool. Okay, so we're going to go back to visualizations, and we're going to format this visual to be just like our existing visual for year. Does it let me just format? If not, I can switch everything, but I don't feel like working on this. Okay, there we go. Okay, so instead of that, we are going to say it should be a numeric between. How do I get to be a, oh, that's why. Okay, so I don't care about the year anymore. I want to get that out of the way. The selection should be, why is it not a between? All right, let's just try that again. We'll delete it. We'll create a brand new slicer right here. We'll choose driver position, and it should be, oh, look at that. Notice how it's 1, 10, 11, and then like 220. Willing to bet anything that this is a text field. If we click over here in driver position, bam, text again. Okay, so now we have to go back to SQL Server, reformat it. There it is, position cast. We'll change this right now as int. Will it let us, right? That's the problem, is we faced that with the other one. So will it let us do that? Nope, conversion failed. NC again. Okay, so same issue as the points, it looks like, right? Or was it points? No, what was it? Oh, earlier we were doing the whole position equals one thing. So here's where I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to say try cast. And I'm going to say when it doesn't return a position, meaning it's like DNF or non-complete, or I don't remember, DQ for disqualified. When it doesn't return successfully, I'm actually going to make it return 99. Why 99? Because I don't want it to be 0. Normally I'd say like coalesce with 0, but I'm going to make it return 99 so that it doesn't fall into my lower filters. So let's change the alignment a bit. Here, no, I don't want to open Microsoft 365. Thanks though. All right, there we go. Okay, so let's change the alignment of all of these here. And it happened again. I'm just not fantastic at Windows. And I don't know what that was. Okay. That's what I get for trying to be lazy and do like tabbing for everything at the same time. There we go. All right, and one more. Fantastic. Okay, look at that. Driver position 99 whenever there's like a DNF or not a real position. Let's slide through a bunch of this data and see if we can find a couple 1s and 2s. Did everyone like DNF or something, or is it just yeah, there we go. Okay, Great. Look at that. We have values in driver position. Okay, so let's go ahead and alter this view. And let's bring it back. Fantastic. Okay, so we've reloaded our data. We can see that it's sorting perfectly now, which means I should be able to copy and paste this visual right here and replace the year with the position. If that holds true, come on, buddy. Nope, it just does not want to. Let's see if I can do a between here. Should I just change it here to between? Hey, look at that, between. All right, so I don't need this guy anymore. That was just proving our point there. Okay, fantastic. Let's make this a little bit smaller. No, this is as small as I want to really make it. All right. Okay, so we have one more kind of small thing to fit right here. Oh, and let's rename this driver position. Nope, just position is fine, right? Okay, so here's what I meant. If I just want to say, like, give me just the top drivers, I'll just switch it from 1 to 1, and then it'll show who the top drivers were for each year if I really wanted to. So one last thing I'm going to do is, since I have this data grid page over here, and I have very similar filters, but I just want to be able to display the data, I'm going to go ahead and copy pretty much everything over except the data grid itself. Because really, these two reports can be super similar, but one can show, or sorry, these two pages can be very similar, but one can show stats and the other one can show just the grid, or one can show like summary and graphs and things, visuals, and the other one can just show a grid of what you want, because maybe you just want to export all the drivers that one, and so I want to give you the freedom to do that. Now, one thing that just popped up here is the sync visuals. This just means that if you want to sync the visuals between the pages, you can, meaning if I make a selection on one page and I just want to hop over to the other page, so I can, for example, export this grid that you see, that it'll still hold the visuals in the way that I filtered them, and it doesn't have to, I don't have to go back in and resync all my visuals. I don't have to make the same selections and the same filters. So we're going to go ahead and sync those just for ease of use. Okay, so here, now it looks like I have everything. I'm going to say this is a unique ID, so let's just rename a couple of these. Track, team, and then this is driver number, driver name. I'm just making it a bit friendly so that the folks reading this report can don't have to try to change these on their own. Okay, total time is the only other one I have to fix here, and we're just going to make this guy gray. All right, there's the background. It's in gray. Technically, we can add any other columns that we want here as well. Driver team, it looks like I didn't add the space here, so I'm just going to change that to team, and then driver, just call this one driver. Driver name is fine. And then over here, it looks like I forgot that too, so I'll make sure it gets done here. And I think I know what we're going to end up putting down here in this empty space. Why don't we just put a bunch of tracks in here, right? So track outline, F1 track outline PNG. Is there anything that has like lots of them? Nope, that's okay. Let's take my favorites. I think my favorites are Monza, So we'll save this as Monza outline. We'll say, let's go to spa. Who doesn't love spa? There it is. And two more. I'm not a huge Suzuka fan. Where's Monaco? That's Monaco right there. But I want just a standard one. Let's take Marina Bay. Yes, Marina. Oh, no, I copied it. Let's do save. All right. Yes, Marina. Outline. I wanted to see if I could find the Hungaroring. Austria. Silverstone. How about Silverstone? All right. Outline. All right. Fantastic. I think we have enough. Let's go back to Power BI and let's add these. And then we'll have a report. That's fantastic. All right. So we're going to insert them. I think I can add them all. No, of course I can't. Okay. So we'll add Silverstone. We'll add... Oh, where are you? Where are you? Here it is. Abu Dhabi. We'll add Spa. Even though Spa's my favorite, I should have added that first, but that's okay. Okay, good so far. And Monza. Looks like this one might have to be a little bit smaller. Nope, I think I can make that work. Let's space them out a little bit so they look nice. Okay, that's pretty good. Alright, and we're going to go ahead and copy that over here. Okay, and we have a report. Why don't we add a little bit of a background, like a gray background to the back here. And to do that, all I'm just going to do is add a rectangular shape. And I'm going to make it be the same color as these. Does it let me do that? Does it let me use the format pane? Nah, of course it doesn't. Why would it? Alright, so we're going to say the effects are going to be... Oh no, it did give me the background. So... all I have to do is say the shape I want it to be. Style. Fill is off. And I think this lets us give it a background, right? But the background seems to be a little lighter than the rest of those, so. Is that good? Yeah, that's not bad. Okay, let's go to visualizations. Let's go to the selection pane and just make sure that this shape is underneath all those images and the F1 logo and the text box. Title, shape. Oh, it looks like these guys need some background too. That's okay. We'll go ahead and take the format pane and give it that background too. Looks like it was a bit too dark there. I'll just make this one's background transparent. Off. There we go. And then turn the background for this one off as well. Effects background off. Ooh, that's not a PNG, friends. Okay, let's go get a good PNG, because apparently that one's a bad one. That gives me a chance to get Hungaroring, right? No, that's spot. What else do we have? That's the same Silverson one. Monza, Shanghai. I wasn't a huge fan of Shanghai. Hockenheim ring. I'll do that one. Let's get Hockenheim. Hocken. I don't know how to spell. I apologize, Germany. I do not know how to spell Hockenheim. I feel like a dummy, but where is it? I know it's somewhere. Oh God, I hope this is how you spell it. Maybe with a C. I want to say it's CK. Hockenheim ring, right? Outline. Again, apologize, Germany. All right. Insert an image. Insert Hockenheim. And now it does have a transparent background, and I can slam it in here, which is fantastic. I'm going to do so, and look at that. Now I'm going to replace this over here on this other one, and I'm going to take the shape that we just created here, and I'm going to add it over here. And we have a report. The outline, I'm not a huge fan of this outline here, so we're going to change that outline and just turn it off in the format. So that's going to be in the effects. Visual border is off, and it must be in the shape. Shape, rounded corners, style, no fill. Oh, there it is, the border. We're going to go ahead and turn that border off. Same over here. We're going to go ahead and turn this border off too. Shape. Nope. Style, border off. All right. So it looks like we have a small little gap to fill right there, and Power BI is going to be ridiculous about it as usual and not let me like alter the shape. Let's see if we can save ourselves some space here and do it anyway. There we go. All right, great job, Power BI. Now I'm just going to copy these two visuals because I don't feel like having to play that silly adjustment game again. So all I have to do is copy them and paste them over here, and they'll go through. Okay, so I think now we're kind of ready to publish this report, and I'm not going to do so for this video, but what we have here is the ability to create a report, and we have a start to finish. You can see that all you really have to do is discover the data and be a bit curious about the data. And again, it's one of the most rewarding things of my job is I get to discover new data sets, and I get to explore a little bit. And obviously, most of the data sets are just pertinent to my job, but I'm lucky enough to have a hobby that I actually do as a career. And so I'm hoping that I can spend more time discovering these data sets and building reports about them. As you can see, it doesn't take very long to build these reports, and so I'll be doing sessions every now and then as part of my data discovery series. So what we're going to do here is make sure that this is aligned all the way through, and that this one's aligned all the way through as well. Let's try publishing. There's a possibility that it'll let me publish. Oh, yes, I want to save my changes. Oh my God, how have I gone this long without saving anything? F1, what was it that I called this? F1 stats, yearly summary. Oh gosh. Please, folks, go through and save these Power BI data sets, and save these Power BI reports, because the last thing you want is to work super hard on something and not be able to see your work. So here's my data set demos. going to use the dataset demos workspace. And let's see if it'll let me publish. And again, this is import, so the data is going to go all the way up to the cloud and it's going to stay there. I won't actually have to have the SQL Server turned on or anything for anyone to see this report. Okay, and so we open the report and it looks like it let me publish. That's fantastic. So now I can interact with this report from my browser. I can interact with it from my iPad. I can go through and just search for some, my favorite drivers. One of my favorite drivers, Ayrton Senna. I can go in and just see all of the different stats that he had from 1984 through 1994. I can see all of the different teams that he belonged to. Renault and Williams. And look, that's one of the opportunities I have for data discrepancy. Obviously, he wasn't part of 2 teams. It only shows 6. So why would it even show 6? If we do a quick diagnosis of our data, then we should be able to see it. So I'm going to go ahead and really quickly, Ayrton Senna, let's see. Alberto Ascari was just there. That's pretty fascinating. I'm going to spend some time exploring this data set after this video is done and see what else I can find. But why is it saying he was with 6 unique teams when it only gives us 2? If we go to the fields or the visualizations pane, apologies, what you'll see is that we have count distinct teams is 2. It should be 2, right? What did I count? Driver team. Count distinct driver team. What's going on with that data set? I need to explore this. Let's spend a few moments in exploring it just to make sure that I'm not going crazy. Because one of the coolest things about this is because you're exploring this data, now you're kind of responsible for telling the story. And if someone who's privy to the data already, who's waiting for a report from you, finds a discrepancy like that, they're going to question it immediately. So you want to always make sure that you get ahead of everything, right? You want to make sure that you get ahead of any possible discrepancies that you have. Look, folks, the last thing you want is for you to work extremely hard on a report and deliver what you think is a fantastic product. It might be a beautiful product, but if you didn't spend the time to really look at it and see whether or not the data itself has the integrity that you feel it should, or that it just normally should as part of your job, you really will have a hard time being successful and being trustworthy. You have to be your own worst critic in these scenarios, and you always have to question your data. And even though I'm doing this for fun, my mindset is so trained to make sure that I have correct data showing in my report, that even though this is for fun, I want to see what's going on with this data and why we're seeing 6 when it really should be 2. So if you want to hang out with me, I'm gonna go explore that right now. Basically, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say where driver name equals Ayrton Senna, and I'm gonna say how many distinct teams. I'm gonna challenge it. I use SQL Server to validate my Power BI reports all the time, so I want to say distinct driver name, because I'm wondering if it's like something I'm passing in incorrectly. Actually, no, I want the distinct driver team, which this is the query that Power BI is running, right? Is give me all the different driver teams. Here's all the driver teams. McLaren Ford, Lotus Renault, Williams? Yeah, I mean, this seems legit. So why is it only letting me select two here? These are supposed to be pretty dynamic. Wow. If you look, I deployed this report with Reno entered here, and it's stuck. When I delete it, all the teams come back. So that was my fault for deploying it that way. So what I'm gonna do is clear out all my filters and make sure I have it cleared out here too from the predicted text. I'm gonna delete that, and I'm gonna make sure everything's okay. That's one thing to note, folks, is whatever you see here, including an open filters pane, when you deploy the report, it will deploy that way. So you want to make sure that you have the report in its ready state as you want it to be presented when someone clicks it to open. So I'm going to republish it. Wow, I'm glad I wasn't going crazy. I'm glad it was 6 teams, and we can feel confident deploying this report. Stay curious about this data that you're reporting on. You really want to make sure you take the time to get familiar with it, be able to answer any questions you can about it, because ultimately you are the last line of defense here. You are the person who they're going to question, or who the stakeholders are going to want to know and get answers from. So even if they're not overly familiar with the data, you're still going to be responsible for it. So the very last thing you want to do after you publish is just spend a little bit of time getting really familiar with your report and getting intimate with the data that you're representing, even if the data has nothing to do with any interest that you have. Here we can see that I can filter by pretty much anything else inside the report, and it's going to work absolutely fine, except for Hockenheim rings not showing up. You see that? Let's fix that really quick before we depart. So very last thing I'm going to do is paste this Hockenheim ring over here, save it, replace it, and I think we got a little, okay, there we go. Now I'm going to be able to go over here, refresh the report, and when I go back to the summary page, I should be able to see it now. So now I'm going to go spend some time just perusing this data and checking it out, because there's a lot of cool names here that I've heard only in like passing or in or on Formula One broadcasts, and I'm really curious about some of these tracks as well. I'm quite curious about, so I'm going to spend some time just discovering this data after building a report about it. I really want to thank you for hanging out with me here. What we did was we took data from Kaggle, one of the free data set sites that you can get it from. You can get any data from. So actually, huge thanks to Adil Tajani for providing this data set 2 years ago, where I was able to just take it today and discover and build an entire report about it from start to finish. So I really appreciate you hanging out with me. Please head over to dbatools.io to check out DBATools' data sets. Huge thanks to Eric Darling for his work discovering Column Store and giving us articles about it so that we can optimize our data a lot better. And again, please feel free to check out the Financial Times visual vocabulary. I'm going to have all those links in the description for you, just in case you need them. They'll just be clickable there. And please feel free to comment and just let me know if you want to see any other videos with any particular data sets that you might be interested in, or any data sets that you can pass over my way to see if they're of any interest, and I'll make more videos about those. Thanks so much. Really appreciate you spending some time with me here. And I'll see you next time on another episode of Data Discoveries. Take care.